Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Dusk. Welcome to Realm of the Sacred Roots. Please, if you enjoy this video, like and subscribe. I wanted to talk today about astral travel, some of my own personal experiences where I intentionally and unintentionally traveled. Before I was living with my fiance, he told me a couple of times he'd be sitting on the couch at night watching a movie or watching TV, and he would see my spirit standing outside of the screen glass door looking in at him. He told me this a couple of times. At the time, I wasn't aware that I was traveling, but I'd have friends tell me that a friend of mine told me they woke up and I was sitting in a chair in the corner looking at them, watching over them. So I'm glad my friends know me because it could be a little creepy to some people seeing my spirit staring in at them, but this is what happens sometimes. And sometimes when I sleep, I am unaware that my spirit is traveling. And I'll get feedback from friends, and in the other case, my fiance, about my travels. I also would wake up a couple of times in the middle of my traveling and realize that I was astral projecting. This was not too long ago. I was over the ocean and I was looking out at an island, and there was this man, I call him a man, but he felt more like a wizard type, staring at me from the island, and I was looking at him, and he said, "How did you find me?" And I think it startled me back into my body. And I've had other experiences where I journeyed to the underworld, and I saw a circle of people that had hoods on, and they noticed that I was behind them listening in, and a couple of them turned toward me. "What is she doing here?" They started to whisper. And again, I would go back into my body. So I've had these experiences where unintentionally I didn't realize I was traveling as I would sleep and then wake up in the middle of these experiences, and end up going places that I probably most likely shouldn't have been. I guess I'm just a curious one a lot of times. Those were probably the most interesting unintentional astral traveling that I've done. There was also a more recent one, now that my fiance and I are living together, where he was sleeping one morning. I woke up and I got out of bed and I looked at him and I said, maybe I should get back in bed and, wake him up and just be really sweet. This is how I usually am. But as I stood there thinking that, but I ended up not doing that. I went to the kitchen to make coffee, and I don't remember, maybe 10 minutes later, he came out of the room saying, "Were you just in the room waking me up?" And I said, "No, I wasn't. I was out here making coffee." And he said, "Well, you were just in there in bed whispering in my ear the way you normally do, telling me to wake up." And I said, "No, I thought about doing that, but I didn't. I ended up coming in here and making coffee." And so it freaked him out for a minute, even though he's seen a lot of things, that are weird coming from me. But it did kind of freak him out because he's like, "There's no way you could have been in there waking me up and then right back out here." And sometimes I feel like my spirit it does travel like that, and I'm not sure how else to explain it, but sometimes it does that. So if you're a traveler and you're not yet aware of all the times that you travel, sometimes it happens that way. It's really interesting, some of the places that you end up and some of the ways you can actually send your spirit places to do things, or to be somewhere else when you're in a different location. So those were the most interesting unintentional traveling I think that I've done. Um, Even when putting my thought to it, my spirit will sometimes travel. As far as the intentional travel, there are two primary examples that I wanted to give on the intentional traveling. And both times, well, let me give you the first example. The first example is um, one that I did for a friend of mine. She had some tenants in another state, and she was trying for an entire year, she said, to get them um, out of her place. But they stopped paying her rent, and it was clearly upsetting her, which upset me because we were good friends at the time. And so, seeing her talk about it, seeing her just fret over it, I was like, okay, enough's enough. You can't get them out. I'm not sure what's going on. She's already tried all the legal routes that she could, and they still wouldn't leave. So I went into basically my altar, and I ended up meditating and traveling to the building that they were living in, the space they were occupying. And I was irritated and somewhat upset because it was upsetting her. So I did. I traveled to it was a different state, to the place that they were living in. And I was able to see the layout. Once I got there, I was able to see the layout where the stairs were on the left, the hallways in the middle, the sitting room was on the right. And so I was able to lay it out while I saw somebody coming down the hallway, and this was astrally. They were physically in the house walking down the hallway toward me. And I was just pissed, and I wanted them to see me. And so I basically told them they weren't staying there and you will get out. And I threatened them, is what I ended up doing. And I was just very angry and put all of my energy into that setting. And so they saw me. There was somebody else in the background, but the gentleman that was walking toward me, I know he saw me because he stopped and he looked, and like his eyes were big, and he went back like that. So I knew he saw me. It took her almost a year to try to get them out. I did that on a Sunday. That Friday, they ended up contacting her, which she could never reach them to try to contact them. They wouldn't answer the phones. They contacted her that same Friday, and ended up telling her that they were going to move out, and they sure did move out speedily after that. Now, some people can call that a coincidence. I don't. I, I've I've done enough to know. So once you have done enough traveling to know that what you see is what you've seen, don't doubt yourself. And once you know they see you, you have reached them and accomplished your goal. So in that case, I knew, and the feedback was almost instantaneously, didn't even take a week from the time on Sunday that I visited to Friday, them actually calling her and saying they were going to get out. So to me, that's feedback. That would be the first example of intentionally traveling. And then the second example I gave in another video, but I'll quickly go over it again. Um, in this one, because I didn't tell the entire story on the last video, but in this case, I had somebody who basically was trying to peep in on me and sent something into my own space in order to spy on me, which I saw the entity and quickly dissolved it and got rid of it, but I knew where it came from. So this was the story of me going physically, astrally going to their place, to their space, and it was an evening time that I went, and I saw them in the house. As I traveled there, I saw them in the house sitting in the kitchen, and I showed up in the kitchen, and I was pissed because these people were supposed to have been friends of mine who ended up getting jealous. And there's more to the story, but long story short, I hadn't talked to them in months, and ended up putting snakes and bees into the house. And this is the story where I found out later that one of them was allergic to the bees. But there was a third party in this story, a supposed friend of mine, who told me that she wasn't involved with these people. And there's usually drama going on sometimes in magic circles. Well, that's what this was. And a friend of mine told me she wasn't involved with these people who were trying to do these things to me. So when I hit these people and went to their space astrally and sent the snakes and the bees, my so called friend who said she was not involved with them ended up getting hit too, because she was trying to protect them. And I didn't know that because I asked her if she was involved and she said no. So when the energy and when I went and hit them, she was trying to stand in the way and she got hit too. And here's the feedback that I'm telling you about, and here's how I found out. Well, there were two ways I found out. Not only did I not talk to these people for it's been months, literally the very next morning after this happened, after they sent the spy, after I got rid of the spy, and that same night I went to visit them and I hit them. The very next morning, they sent me a text message. Oh, I haven't talked to you in a while. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Of course, I didn't respond, and that was the last time I ever heard from them, and they never tried anything again. I knew they saw me in the house because they were looking at me, and I made myself known in the house. One. Two, verification was the very next morning, I got a text message, and I haven't talked to them in months. So I knew they felt my hit. So that was the second way to verify what you've done. And the third way was my so called third party friend who said she wasn't involved. About 2 days later, I went and saw her and was talking to her. And she said, oh, you know what's funny? This weekend I got stung by a bee on my hand. And she showed me the red mark on her hand where she got stung by a bee because she was in the middle trying to protect them. And so that was verification for me again that these things aren't coincidences. You have to look at the whole scenario and be an analyst and analyze what's actually going on in the story, and you'll know who your friends are and who aren't, which ones aren't your friends, by the way you do your magic and what comes back at you. Sometimes people unintentionally think things, so be careful when if you're going after someone. It doesn't happen often where I have to do something like that. It's only been a few times, and I don't want to, or I don't, necessarily um, take pleasure in doing those things. But there are certain rules that I follow, and both cases warranted it. And as in the last case, you see, um, I had no more issues from the first people, and the second person. It's unfortunate because I considered her a friend, but however, friends don't lie to you, and friends don't get in the way of something that um, when you're doing some type of work on someone, obviously it all comes out in the wash, and you'll end up realizing it. Keep your heart pure, and you'll end up seeing what the truth is at the end. So, well, these are my stories for astral travel. I have quite a few more. I'm going to do another video here on my travels, my astral travel to the underworld. It's a very interesting story. And again, through all my stories, I'm hoping you can learn what to do and what not to do. There, these have taken me years. These stories, these experiences have taken me years to experience and to compile. And if you're like me and you're hungry for knowledge, then hopefully you'll get something out of these videos and can add them to your toolbox. So please like and subscribe. I thank you guys again for watching, and look out for my next video coming soon about my travels to the underworld.